Welcome to Digital Nation, your weekly showcase of the best of local TV. This week, we meet a lonely bagpiper on a seaside shore. A big-headed boy coping with cyberbullying. We seek out an extremely large telescope and go food, glorious food with apples, chocolate and, well, just more food. Loving local? Then let us know what you think by using the hashtag #DigitalNation. First up, Notts TV celebrate the humble and glorious cooking apple at the Bramley Apple Festival in Southall. Cultivated in Nottinghamshire, this apple brings the whole community together in both competitive spirit and crumbles.
I like apples because they're red. I like apples, it's what I said. I like apples and applesauce.
The fruit itself is a fruit from Southall and has just continued in its popularity. It was so widely grown after the Second World War that so many of them were moved around in Covent Garden that it got nicknamed the King of Covent Garden.
Just as the Bramley can trace its lineage back to Southall, siblings Celia Stephen and Colonel Merriweather can trace theirs back to the man who first spotted its potential, Henry Merriweather, who's buried in the grounds of Southall Minster. From humble beginnings, Celia says the Bramley's now world famous.
And it's loved all over the world, and it really is all over the world today.
I really like those apples because if you got a toothache, you can make...
Southall's gone Bramley bonkers. Shops and cafes are hoping for a business boom. So much so that many have got in the spirit with themed window displays. There's even a prize for best display.
It's all about driving traffic in the town, foot traffic. The more people that walk around the town, the more opportunity there is for people to come into the shop and obviously sales as a result.
But it's not just businesses getting into the competitive spirit. An art exhibition at the town's libraries pitting locals against one another.
It's bizarre, really, that people get so excited in Southall over an apple. It brings the whole community together.
Organisers say it's the Bramley's pedigree that pulls people back to Southall year after year. That more than 200 years since it was first spotted, the Bramley's still the world's best cooker. How'd you like them apples?
Each city has its artists, and Leeds has Leslie Childs, who draws and paints all the iconic buildings in the city. Look up and you'll notice all the architectural beauty highlighted in his detailed and fine drawings. Made in Leeds takes a look.
I think I've produced about 80 different drawings of the city. So I've covered most of Leeds, and it's iconic buildings that I'm interested in. This is in Park Row, and not many people know this building, but if you look up above, there's a load of figures in terracotta. The gentleman that owns the building, his father died about 2 or 3 years ago. He researched all the history. He asked me to do a drawing close-up of all the figures in black and white, which I've done. But then he said, will you do another one in watercolour? So I'm halfway through this, putting the figures in. There's a figure of Mercury. It signifies trade from around the world. And nobody knows it, seems to know it's there. And people come across the road and say, they look up and say, I never noticed that. I've lived here all my life.
Is that something you most enjoy about doing this? The fact that, you see things that people don't, you look up and I mean, even just looking up now, this building is gorgeous and it's something that people probably don't ever get to see, really. Do you feel that you almost help people to see the city in a different light?
To appreciate it, to appreciate the buildings, the sort of heritage that we've got. There are artists that do scenes of Leeds with old trams, but I want it now, to show it as it is now, and then in future years people say, oh, I remember that, and hopefully in years to come they will appreciate it and say, oh, well, he was quite a good artist.
Over in Manchester, we visit a squat set up in a disused commercial property. That's Manchester Reports on all the activities inside and the challenges of homelessness.
It's been almost a week since Manchester Angels and the Love activists announced they had occupied Charlotte House in central Manchester. Since Saturday, the building has been open to the needy and the curious, but the squatters are still cautious with new visitors. It's a 5-floor non-residential building owned by PP Developments Limited, a company registered in the British Virgin Islands. The building had stood empty for years before the squatters moved in through an open window in July this year. Now it serves as a homeless shelter. About 40 to 50 people sleep and stay here. But the activists are expecting more to come over the winter. And they want the building to provide more than just shelter.
More recently we went public last Saturday for World Homeless Day. We opened it up to the public, we got it all cleaned out, got the bathroom, the shower, so that people can literally come off the streets and just give them the basic needs. We're not the professionals, but once we've got these people in and we can analyse them individually, we can then signpost them to the professionals that can help.
I'm not forced to live on the streets. I've got an option of being at my granddad's, but I've got depression and it's too hard to live with family, so I've moved with friends into a tent. I've been there for about a month now.
It's not just homeless people you meet here. These clothes and most of the food came as donations. And there is more on the way. The big question now is, how long can the squatters stay? The council is not involved. They regard this as a private dispute. To remove them, the owner has now to seek an interim possession order or IPO at a British court. But even if they have to leave this place, the homeless activists say they will continue squatting in Greater Manchester's empty properties. They don't even need to look far. The conurbation now has over 8,500 empty buildings.
Creative Kingdom time now. But which city this week leads the way in innovation and ingenuity?
So who is responsible for the modern piano? Is it the Italians? No. Is it the Viennese? No. Is it East Lothian? Yes! It's all down to a carpenter called John Broadwood, who decided to get out of wardrobes, walked 400 miles to a harpsichord workshop in Soho, and helped the instrument change its tune. First, he beefed up the frame, then he invented the piano pedal, then he jacked up the bass, and then he expanded the range. His grand piano was so popular, it was used by Chopin, Beethoven, Haydn, and Liberace. Proof once again that when it comes to creativity, innovation, and killing it on the keyboard, it Lothian mint.
Next, we head over to London Live and enter a brand new museum. The Food Museum in Borough Market brings together exotic and drunk butterflies, as well as menus of edible lace and chocolate cameos. But please, no eating the exhibits.
We're just about to open the world's first museum entirely dedicated to food. It's here at Borough Market, and we at Bombs and Pipe have been working really hard for the last 4 weeks to bring it all together. You've got everything from a butterfly house telling the story of global food security to something we're calling Be the Bolus, the peristalsis experience.
Butterflies, a lot of people don't realise, are actually excellent pollinators. So we always hear about the bees, but they're kind of the unsung heroes of the pollination world. And together with wasps and other insects, even bees and bats, all of them play a role in pollination. We've got some magnificent specimens in here, and they're all rainforest species. They come from all over the world, different parts of the rainforest. They tend to gorge on fruit. They don't know when to stop. So basically, they can get quite inebriated, and they'll fall over and could look like they've actually passed away for some hours, and then they suddenly spring back to life, probably with quite a hangover, and then they go about their business again.
We're kind of more inspired by the Design Museum, but how many people, as they go about their day, are thinking about what chair they're going to sit on when they get home? No one at all. Everyone's planning the meal they're going to have, the barbecue on the weekend, what restaurants they're going to go out to and where they're going to drink. So we thought the time has come to open the British Museum of Food.
Imagine living next door to a bagpiper. Well, Daniel Del Piccolo is a most considerate bagpiper as he takes his instrument to Southsea Beach to play his stirring Scottish tunes. Indeed, all the neighbours seem to stroll by and take a listen.
A lone piper on the seafront. Alone because bagpipes are, well, a wee bit loud. It's a fantastic hobby, Daniel Del Piccolo leaves his home to practice here at the War Memorial so as not to disturb his neighbourhood.
It's the furthest away I can get from the housing area. So, as everyone knows, the bagpipes are quite loud instrument. It's very intrusive to the ears. So, realising this, I kind of come down here, and on a beautiful day like this, I think it's the perfect setting to play tunes. I get a lot of people passing by, stopping and to have a listen, and most of the time people don't mind it. And where they do, I'd stop. Because it's a loud instrument, and realising that you kind of have to take that into account.
So do people here at Southsea like the music?
Yes, I do.
Yeah?
Because that's why we walked over, so we could see what's going on. It's really nice.
I think a fantastic sound, absolutely amazing. Very emotional sort of sound, I love them. So whenever I hear it, like a shot.
This man comes out here so that his neighbours don't have to listen to him practice.
That's a good idea.
Oh, is
then.
that what it is?
That's really good,
right.
isn't
But
it?
but he sounds quite good, doesn't he?
Yeah, sounds really good.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't mind if he was that good, neighbours.
You can see Daniel performing at events all around Portsmouth, but I bet you hear him first.
Quiz time now. Which city was home to Greyfriars Bobby, the loyal terrier dog who spent 14 years guarding the grave of his owner? Was it A, Glasgow, B, Edinburgh, or C, London? Join us after the break for the answer. Welcome back to Digital Nation. Before the break, we asked you, which city was home to Greyfriars Bobby, the loyal terrier dog who spent 14 years guarding the grave of his owner? And the answer is B, Edinburgh. Greyfriars Bobby was well loved by locals who even fed him. And when the dog died in 1872, he was buried by his owner, John Gray. Now let's get on the bus with buddies, as David Farrell from STV Glasgow takes a ride through the city. He meets the inspiring founder, carers and young people who enjoy the clubs and services offered by this great local charity.
So Buddies Clubs and Services is it's for children affected by disability mainly, although we do also have a mainstream nursery. And we take from ages 5 to 35 years old. My daughter was diagnosed in 1990, in fact, as having autistic features. And I discovered that there was absolutely no social outlets for young people like her. So in 1994, we started Buddies. And we really didn't realise how it was going to take off and how many families we were going to help over the years.
You asked me something about this microphone, didn't you?
Yeah.
Because you'd never seen this before, and you wanted to give it a name.
Yeah.
What name are you going to give this microphone? It's not got a name.
Angus.
So you're going to name the STV Glasgow microphone Angus?
Yeah.
Why Angus?
So because I like the name.
What would you do without Buddies? How big a part of your life is Buddies?
My life would be bad
if you didn't have Buddies?
Yes.
So it's an amazing place?
Yes, it is, yes.
And you've made some amazing friends?
Yes, I have, yes.
And you've made some amazing cakes?
Yes, I have, yes.
What cakes do you make? Chocolate cakes?
Yes.
Oh, have you brought a wee chocolate cake with you today?
No, sorry.
Oh, Neil.
I would say one of the main challenges is trying to find things for people to take part in that have some meaning and have some meaning to them as individuals. At the same time, we don't just want to do things that are fun, we want to do things that are fun that we can learn with and young people and adults can grow and develop at the same time.
Tell me about how long you've been at Buddies for, Tegan. How many years?
4.
4 years, and have you met some great friends in that time?
Yes.
Who have you met?
Ashley and Amy and Ashton.
And I'm not going to ask you who your favourite is because they're all your favourite, aren't they?
Mhm.
So you don't like One Direction or anything like that?
Mhm.
Oh, you do like One Direction?
Yeah.
What's your favourite One Direction song?
First time forever.
Oh, that's one of my favourites as well. Will we sing that?
No.
Friendship is so important to these young people, but for some reason people don't think that if you can't get out house and you can't go to ordinary groups and you can't do this, can't do that, how are you going to have any friends? So that's really one of the keys with buddies, is because of friends. You've got some in wheelchair, some with quite severe mobility problems, some with autism, but you know what? When they're out having fun and they're doing all these things, you'll forget all about their problems, because they do, and they have a great time.
Next up, that's Lancashire. Take us to a chocolate-making church. This is the only fair trade chocolate shop in the world which offers bean-to-bar workshops for schools and the public. Surely this is a cocoa bean heaven.
Inside a church in Lancaster, there's a new kind of religion being practiced, a love of chocolate. Here at the Fig Tree, everything is fair trade and based on a single premise.
You have a situation with our trading system where you have cocoa farmers in Ghana going cocoa for your chocolate. They may not even have access to clean drinking water. They may not have health care. They may not be able to send their children to school. And yet we are eating their chocolate. Now that to me is simply immoral. It's legal. There's nothing illegal about it, as indeed the slave trade used to be legal, but it's wrong. And to me, all of us should be caring passionately about putting an end to that.
Many of us can admit to a love of chocolate, but there's also a love of education here and teaching people about the process which turns beans that look something a little like this into the chocolate bars we're so used to seeing.
Fantastic. I mean, we take the beans from our friends in Ghana. I'm going over there again in November. So we know the very people who grow the cocoa. And we take these beans and we make it into chocolate, bean-to-bar chocolate. There's only a few places in the whole country that do that. But we're the only place that I know of in the world where we do it for children's workshops, for school workshops.
Each bean can be tracked back to the farmers that have grown it in Ghana.
What we do, we roast it. Then you have to dehusk it. You take the shells off. And then you have what's called the cocoa nib. And then that's ground down. The Aztecs used to do it on a big stone. We now use a modern day grinder. And you grind it right down, and then you get it into a paste. Then you add cocoa butter, you add sugar, you add milk, and you eventually get into food. It sounds very easy. It's not. And it's certainly not something you can just do in a school sort of workshop. We need a minimum 4.5 hours to be doing it. When we make it for our sale, we spend 3 or 4 days making it. But for the workshops, we just spend 4.5 hours and they make this chocolate.
Around 45 bars are made at a time, and anything that isn't good enough to sell goes back into the melting pot.
Now, over to Oxford. Take some Lego, some very advanced physics, and find out how to build the world's largest telescope. Listen carefully, as the Lego is just for show. And Oxford University's involvement will mean more cosmic data is available for scientists to study.
Oxford University's physics department is leading the first stage in a major European telescope project. Professor Naranjan Thate explains more.
The European Extremely Large Telescope is going to be the world's largest optical telescope. It's going to be built on a desert mountaintop in northern Chile. It's still about 9 years into the future, so we are looking at first light, something like 2024. And so here's our Lego model of what the telescope will look like. It's going to have a segmented primary mirror, which will have 798 individual segments. That because we can't make a mirror, a monolithic mirror that's large enough in one go. But in terms of light collecting area, it will be almost as much area as all the telescopes we've ever built put together. We build big telescopes for two reasons. One is to collect lots of light, because compared to the unaided eye, we can collect millions of times more light, and that means we can see fainter objects. Now, fainter usually means more distant, but not necessarily. And distant usually also means younger, because the light has taken a long time to travel from the distant galaxies to us. And so we see them as they were only 1 or 2 billion years after the Big Bang, whereas today is almost 14 billion years, 13.8 billion years after the Big Bang. So that gives us an ability to look back into the early history of the universe and to understand how galaxies formed, how the stars in them formed, how they evolved over cosmic time.
Being part of the project means Oxford will be one of the first institutions to access new data gained by the telescope, helping it remain a world-leading university.
Finally, we end on something a little bit different from latest TV Brighton. Shown on their You Make It, We Show It programme, this animation about cyberbullying was made by a group of 13-year-olds in Portugal. They even won an award at the Brighton Youth Film Festival. And that's it for another week's showcase of the best of local TV. If you've enjoyed our digital selection, then don't forget there's more you can see by checking out each of the local TV channels' websites. Or why not catch up on previous episodes of the show by visiting bbc.co.uk/Digital Nation. So, until next week, goodbye.